And my number one game of all time is, say it with me now, Resident Evil 4. Here it is, the undisputed best game of all time, at least for me, Resident Evil 4. Perhaps it's not surprising, I've expressed how much I love Resident Evil throughout this whole marathon, and I, like many others, agree that Resident Evil 4 is the best Resident Evil. Resident Evil 4 is both culturally and personally lightning in a bottle. Culturally, due to the fact that it redefined video games for an entire generation, and personally because it came out at a time where Resident Evil was starting to get a little stale for me. It gave it that shot in the arm that it needed. You may have noticed in my last video of the Resident Evil 2 and 3 remake that I didn't say why those games made it into my top 5. Well, it's because it shares the same reason that Resident Evil 4 does. Simply put, these games are just the most fun to play. And at the end of the day, isn't that what really matters? The games that are most fun to play are the ones that are the best. Gameplay-wise, it was one of the pioneers of this over-the-shoulder camera angle. It's a control scheme that's been adopted by many games nowadays, but Resident Evil 4 still I think does it the best. Well, no, future games' control schemes are probably better, but in the context of Resident Evil 4, it really works well. Story-wise, they brought it back to basics. You're Leon Kennedy, back from Resident Evil 2, and you've been sent to a rural village in Europe somewhere to rescue the president's daughter. You discover a mysterious cult that's hell-bent on taking over the world through their parasitic organisms. Throw in the returning Ada Wong and Wesker working from the shadows, and you got yourself a very fun and silly Resident Evil game. That's right, I said silly. This is a silly game, and it's very self-aware.
I've been expecting you, my brethren.
No thanks, bro.
Leon's smartass quips to the over-the-top villains, to just the simplistic storytelling in general. It's very aware of what it is, and that's what gives it so much charm.
See you later.
Women.
While I enjoy the Resident Evil story, even I must admit, it gets a little crazy and full of itself once in a while.
Genesis is at hand, and I will be the creator.
Sometimes I just want to go back to basics, and that's what Resident Evil 4 is. This also happens to be the game that I've easily played the most. I know for a fact I have played and finished this game over 100 times in the 14 years that I've been playing it. There was an era when I was a teenager when I was beating Resident Evil 4 once a week for a few months. I just can't get enough of it. Part of that goes to the environments that are ever changing, as well as the pacing, which Resident Evil 4 is easily the best paced game I've ever played. The combat scenarios are paced just wide enough apart that you never get bored, but you never get overwhelmed. Just about the time you think there should be a boss fight around the corner, that's when one shows up. And when you're scraping by and could really use some weapon upgrades, that's where he comes in. That's right, the best goddamn character in any video game, the Merchant. Who is he? I don't know. Why is he there? I don't know either, but he's great. I even have a picture on my wall that my wife drew for me that has the Merchant front and center. The Merchant represents a new thing for Resident Evil, buying weapons and upgrading them. While this isn't an RPG, the weapon system really gives you an opportunity to customize your character how you want. I've done knife and handgun only runs, I've done runs with only the mine thrower, magnums only, shotguns only, and hell, you could just go full out and get the Chicago typewriter or the laser gun. And it's such an easy game to play. I don't mean easy as in difficulty, I mean easy as in pick up and play. For many people, this was their first Resident Evil game, and it turned them into Resident Evil fans. It's earned accolades all over the place, and there's many people that still consider this to be the best game ever made. So I know I'm not alone when expressing how much I love this video game. And as for that rumored remake of Resident Evil 4, is it gonna happen? Should it happen? I don't know. I know that Resident Evil 4 doesn't need a remake as much as Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3 did. Those games deserved a graphical overhaul as well as gameplay overhauls. But Resident Evil 4 looks good and it still plays well. I suppose a graphics overhaul would be good, Crash Bandicoot Insane style, but I'm not sure what you could really add or take away from this game. Like I said, it's one of the best paced games ever made, and I don't want them to ruin that. But then again, my number 2 game of all time is the remakes of Resident Evil 2 and 3. So a remake of Resident Evil 4, seeing what they could bring to the formula, what they could change, it kinda has me excited. While it's not necessary, I'm not gonna lie that I would be very intrigued to play a remake of this game. It's either gonna please or piss off a lot of people, probably both. But I think you could put me in the camp as cautiously optimistic. Either way, I know I'll always have the classic Resident Evil 4. It's in my opinion the best video game ever made, and I'm not sure anything will ever top it. Resident Evil 2 remake came close, but ultimately nostalgia wins out. And I think you could say that about a lot of my list. I really like nostalgia. I hold a great affinity for the first video game console I ever played, the PlayStation, and for one of the first video games I ever played, Resident Evil. I had a great time going through this list for the past 25 days, and it's been a hell of a ride. We've talked about shooters, RPGs, platformers, and some games that are even questionably good. I thank you all for joining me on this journey. I really enjoyed myself, and it's been a hell of a ride. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and I'll see you all in 2021.